Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining and tuning in tonight. My name is Andre Ing, President and owner of House of Knives. I'm happy to be joined with great friend and guest Brian Misko. Some people know him better as BBQ Brian. Thanks for joining us,
Hello.
Brian.
That's awesome. Glad to be here.
Yeah, how are things in Vernon? That's where you're relocated now, right?
Well, this is home, and I'm gonna say, maybe an hour ago, it was raining and very breezy, and golly, I actually took shorts off and put pants on and another shirt on because I was cold.
Well, welcome to the new reality of global warming. I think here it's a little bit overcast, typical Vancouver weather. Now, Brian, you and I go back. I was thinking back a few years ago, we first met on the Grills Gone Wild with Sea Fox there. What an event that was. The first time I got a chance to experience it, I'm like, oh my God, the lineup of cars down the highway just to get a taste of the food. And after tasting your food, it was it made sense why the lineups were so long, especially at what, 6 a.m. it started?
We were serving at 6 a.m. and the lineups of people started, easily 4:30, 5 a.m. There was easily people starting to line up, and it was unbelievable. And yeah, we've been doing it for 10 years or 10 plus years, and love hanging out with all the Fox listeners and the Jeff O'Neill Show.
Yeah, no, that was a lot of fun back there. It's hard to imagine now to try to do it with social distancing and everything else would be a bit of a challenge. Wouldn't quite have the atmosphere, I think.
We're willing. we're willing to
Never
try.
been there, right?
Yep.
That's awesome. So no, I'm so happy to have you along here. And again, for those of you guys who haven't experienced Brian's cooking before, you can get somewhat a flavor of it. Hopefully tonight will inspire you to get onto your grills. But also Brian has a great assortment of food items, from his sauces to the spice rubs and seasonings. So you can get a glimpse of it if Vernon's too far for you to drive.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, get the sauce, get the rubs. Absolutely. Make something tasty. So
Yeah. So, Brian, for people who aren't familiar, give us a brief synopsis of your history. You've won some championships along the way, throughout United States and North America.
yeah, absolutely. So this is my 15th year of competitive barbecue, if there were events in 2020. So taking that out of context, but 15 years. We started in 2005. Very first event was in Vancouver at the BC Place, and at our very first outing with my cooking partner Glenn, we won some awards, and it was just a path of glory that just continued to keep us going. But as of 2010, I quit my job and made barbecue my occupation. And since then, I've been making sauces and spices for retailers and consumers to have. And every one of them has started from something that we've created at a barbecue competition where we get awards. So they've got some tremendous flavor, and we love sharing that with people. And I think we're in total about 18 different countries right now. So
Oh, that's awesome.
it's spreading around the world and across the United States, of course, Mexico, and across Canada as well. So, yeah, the little hobby that's growing.
That's awesome. What I love about it too, it's almost like something that you could do for a Disney movie, right? You basically were an accountant before by day that turned barbecue master overnight, right? It's a great story, and I love, we've got the BC owned and operated connection, family businesses working together. So yeah, I just love what you guys are doing.
I might be one of the evil villains in the movie, though.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, right? So how about we
Just
get
kidding.
grilling here? So tonight we're going to inspire people, talk a little bit about some of the important tools that you want to have to make sure you're grilling properly. Because as we try to instill with our vision statement, to improve people's lives through education, innovation, it's a lot about enjoying the process, making sure you've got the right tools. Because just like a carpenter, right? You're not going to have fun building a house if you've got horrible tools.
The very first batch of barbecue sauce that we created was obviously to sell it. And our whole motivation when we did this, Andre, was to um, recuperate a little bit of cash so that we could buy more tools and more stuff that we needed when we were going to barbecue competitions. We needed more
Yeah.
cookers, we needed more tongs, we needed more gloves, we needed so many different things that we needed to gather. And so that was one of the whole motivations doing that. I've got a lot of toys over the years and a lot of different tools, but and when I'm doing a cooking class, I always get these questions that come up. People come up to me and say, can you show me your knife roll?" And
Yeah,
on one hand, kind of striking, but we'll talk about that tonight of what different shapes of knives and types of knives that you could have in your tool chest that'll make
yeah,
you a better in the kitchen and making sure you're using the right thing. And we've also, of course, at House of Knives, you've got some great tools, and so we're going to point out some of those as well. And for our agenda, not only talk about those tools and the knives, but then share a recipe, a little quick preparation, and then on the grill right here, it's all ready to go, and we'll talk about that as well. So let's get
yeah.
into the tools, Andre.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as our core business with cutlery, right? I mean, I always talk about the most important one. People say, if you had one good knife to use, what would it be? And for me, it's by far the chef's knife. I know you've got a blade like this. Now, this one I haven't had a chance to show you, Brian. This is the one that I designed myself, the quarry blade with the 37 layers of steel. It's got the tashumi finish on there, the ham-hammered finish, multiple layers. So yeah, you've got a version in the Shun. Shun's very similar. It's got 69 layers, but super sexy looking. But with the chef's knife, the reason why it's so versatile is the width of the blade, right? So you've got some knuckle clearance here. So when you're working on a cutting board with it, your knuckles aren't going to wrap on the cutting board. And the size you have there, Brian, is that 8-inch you've probably got?
That's 8. Yep, I like this one. Ridiculously sharp.
Yeah.
It maintains that edge. Now, a quick difference here and a quick tip is, and I've made the error. So this is a Shun knife, and Andre, you can correct me on the terminology. And because
Sure.
if there's something that always over the years, if you can learn from somebody else's experience, and I'm going to share something that I did as an error with exactly this knife, and Andre, you can share with me about the different types of metals. For example, this particular chef's knife that I use for cutting up vegetables and preparing onions and whatever else that I'm trimming that way, think of softer items. And I made the grave error one day of trying to cut through a chicken bone, and I ended up chipping the edge of the blade. And so the knife that you have there, Andre, how would that help as a chef knife, as between cutting up vegetables and things of that nature, as versus breaking through some chicken bones?
Yeah, no, great point. So we always say knives are great tools, but they're horrible pry bars, right? Or horrible on bones or anything hard. So you talk about a great point. Whenever we're working around poultry, chicken, meats at all, right? It's always boneless, right? People, and I'll demonstrate this later when we start taking apart the chicken, in terms of you want to go between the joints, right? If anything, you get some cartilage, but you don't want to actually strike bone ideally if you don't have to. But also to that point, different styles of knives have different thicknesses and are sharpened differently. So they're designed to take more abuse, if you will, right? The analogy we always talk about, it's like trying to, take a Ferrari down a 4x4 road, right? It's not always the prettiest thing. The knife you have there is a beautiful blade. It's, that's the Karasuki 8-inch from Shun. And the Japanese knives in general are very sexy. They're also designed to be more like a sports car in terms of they're more of a finesse tool. If you want something a little bit more robust working around chickens, then we recommend, things like boning knives. Like this is a very typical, kind of European style boning knife, but we also have Japanese style boning fillet knife as well. So they're actually sharpened at slightly different angles, so they're not as acute and not can't be damaged so easily, right?
See, I have that exact same knife, and so and this is also the Victorinox. So I have a couple of different boning knives, and so this one here a little bit more rigid in blade, as a resin handle instead, but great for breaking down chicken or larger pieces of meat, or more finer, pardon me, breaking down pieces of meat and things of that nature, and also potentially some bones where you can cut softer tissue. I would say for say a cartilage, or breaking down at a joint, as versus say for example cutting through some a pork rib or even something like that. You might want something a little bit different. So a boning knife as versus a chef knife is what we're pointing out, and also the different type of materials, right?
Yeah, very different, right? I mean, the profile is massively different. So the chef's knife has that nice wide blade. You can do everything from, paste garlic with it, scrape food off your cutting board, mince and dice with it. A boning knife is not what I'd consider one of the more mainstream knives that people would start their set off with. It's pretty specialized, right, in terms of amount of use. But that being said, I always promote, buying food in whole, especially, in the times we're in now, where people have been forced to kind of learn to be a generalist, if you will, because some people got stuck at home. It's like, oh my God, I've never done that before. So even, I love empowering people. Buy a whole fish, how to fillet it, buy a whole chicken, and we're going to show you how to segment it tonight, because there's not only cost savings, but in the end, it's healthier for you, right? In terms of empowering that knowledge. Like a great thing with whole chickens I love is having the carcass where you can actually make soup that doesn't come out of a can, right? Who would have thought, right? What, there's soup that doesn't come out of a can? Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of
And don't use your knife to open the can.
Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, multi-purpose doesn't mean, a can opener, that's for sure. And then one thing I'll show quickly we may put into use after too is a big cleaver. Now, cleavers come in two different variants. They come as a vegetable cleaver, in this case, a meat cleaver. A huge difference, and maybe the camera won't illustrate it, in thickness difference between a chef's knife and a meat cleaver. So this knife here, being a meat cleaver, they're never that sharp, right? I can run my hand on it. It's semi-sharp, but not extremely sharp. And this only has one purpose, right? It's basically like a meat tenderizer, some people use it for, or just going through those heavy bones.
Okay. So we've kind of, so the chef's knife, I would summarize and say for vegetables and big slices of things, possibly use as a slicing knife, and maybe a little bit of your breaking of say a fish or some going through some softer tissue. That the boning knife definitely is more into your proteins. You're not going to be mincing hers with that a boning knife. No, and I'm going to add into one there, Andre, and take into a category of a slicing knife. So you don't need to use your boning knife to slice things. You can use your chef's knife, but I'm going to point out one that's probably discontinued. This is one of my go-tos, and I need to clean this guy up. This is, again, a Shun, really sexy, really stainless, very rigid blade that's there. It definitely needs a cleanup on that one. But it's my brisket knife, and it's for using for long slices, great for slicing meats or steaks, if you will, if you're slicing steaks up, which I often do for my guests. But a slicing knife also to have in your arsenal.
Yeah, I've got one here. Is that the one we repaired for you a couple years ago, Brian? You had a nick in it?
It was, yes. It had a really good ding. So I don't know if it got damaged in my trailer as we were traveling around, but I love this knife.
So this one here, right? It's basically the brisket knife. I think yours is maybe the same model, is it? 12-inch?
Yeah, and the end is a little bit different. You've got the curved end, I've got the pointy end, but yeah, they're wonderful knives.
Yeah, yours I think is out of production, so it's worth at least $1,000 now. Throw it on eBay, right?
Well, only if I maintain it, actually.
Yeah, no, the brisket knife has become very popular just because of size. I mean, 12 inches is a lot, and knives are always measured by overall length from tip to the heel of it. But when you're doing any fine slicing, right, you don't want to be sawing right through your meat. You want one nice easy pull through, right, so you don't damage the meat. And the brisket knife is, unlike most carving knives that are very thin, that you want to get a thin slice. The brisket knife is extremely sharp, but it's got a much thicker blade to it, some rigidity to it. So if you're doing those long cuts, there's no flex in the blade that's going to occur. And you'll notice on this blade here, these little dimples, some people call them. That's what people refer to as a hollow edge or a gratin edge or a fluted edge. So it creates air pockets so food won't stick to it. This knife is part of a barbecue set that Shun makes, actually. Have you seen this, Brian? It comes in its own little knife roll here. So it comes with that brisket knife, but it also comes with, and this is where we talk about different styles of knives. So this knife here is, in the Japanese style, is what they call their boning fillet knife. Very unusual shape. It's more Japanese style with more curve to it. And then one of their very Asian style blades is called a Hanasuki knife. So this one here, I mean, it couldn't be more different, right, than the European version, right? You look at these two knives, but at the end of the day, the knife has to be sharp, right? And it comes down to how you get accustomed to using it. I always use an analogy of runners, right? It's not to say you can't bone a chicken with a chef's knife, but that's like saying, going for a long run in a pair of cross trainers. You can do it, but will it work as well as wearing a pair of runners designed for cross trail running? Probably not. So the Hanasuki here is a very unusual one, just because it's got some width to the blade. It's multi-faceted, but very sharp edge to get into those hard to reach places like the joints.
So is there a chef's knife in that roll?
There isn't. So this is it's just purely called a 4-piece barbecue set. It comes with its own knife roll. It's got the brisket knife, the Hanasuki, and the boning / fillet knife. So Yeah, ironically it doesn't, but it's very specific. People who just love to grill, it's the perfect gift for that.
So listen, Andre, Andre, the CEO, owner, Grand Poobah of the House of Knives. You would think if you want to know about knives, he'd be the guy to know. And if you could go to a store, you could go to a store and learn about them. But we're working on that. That'll be coming around here. But of course, you can go to the website and learn all about knives at House of Knives. But the thing is, that was a big aha when we started doing grills a couple of years ago, Andre, was all the other stuff that you have. There's so many different things that are at your stores and what you've got available to consumers, and pots and pans and cast iron and gizmos and gadgets and batteries and knives, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. And the grill tools that you have as well. And so that's part of our content tonight.
Yeah, and actually it's part of our contest giveaway that we're going to kick off tomorrow morning. So those of you can join in. And yeah, our name kind of does injustice, right? We're kind of like Canadian Tire. No one goes to Canadian Tire to buy tires anymore. But fortunately or unfortunately, House of Knives, majority of our sales are cutlery. But yeah, we do everything from multi-tools to wet shaving gear, accessories for campers, hikers, etc. And some of the indispensable items would be, and I know these are on some of your must-haves. You want a good set of tongs to use.
Yeah.
These ones have to be locking, so when they're in your cupboard or drawer, they're not going to flip-flop everywhere. You just have to push down the bottom, and they open up there, right?
Yep.
You got little kids, it's a fun game for them, right?
Yeah.
It's like Pac-Man. And then the high heat gloves, this is probably favorite. I remember we gave you one of these when we first started prototyping, right? Oh, yeah, there you go. It's incredible because this is made from part of the Kevlar family. So this is heat resistant up to 1,000 degrees, which is crazy. Just for fun, I did a Instagram story where I put this over my gas range for about 10 seconds. It did catch on fire a little bit. It was a lot of fun, and my hand was fine in it, right? So it's exactly the same material as the firefighters use. So extremely heat resistant. It's got silicone dots, so food won't slip out of your hands. And then this great grill mat. This has been massive for us, right? Vegetarians never think much about barbecuing, but these grill mats allow you to basically stir fry on the barbecue. Seafood, shrimps are great, mushrooms, peppers, asparagus that I know you love to grill. Yeah, just indispensable. And then one thing I know you're very passionate about, Brian, would be your thermometers, right?
The thermometers, absolutely. Just a second there, Andre. Going back to that mat, and I don't remember the year that we did grills. Did we end up doing the bacon wrap meatloaf, the cranked up meatloaf? Did we do that year? I don't remember.
It sounds familiar. I mean, there was so much good food, I kind of lose track of it all.
So listen, if you're used to, if you're wrapping bacon, say for ground, or even a pork tenderloin or a meatloaf or something of that nature that's round and you need to shape it, or you're even simply forming a sausage roll of that, a great big long sausage roll, those mats that you pointed out work perfectly for that. And so what you would do is start forming on there, wrap it all over and pull back and using that mat, and you're able to roll that or take that completely out to your grill. Place the whole mat as it's preheated. You're good to go with that. Easy peasy. So those mats do come in very handy.
Yeah, no, I've never heard people use it like that. So it's like making a terrine or pate, right? You basically roll it, keeps it smooth. Now, I'll give you another great hint that people have been buying these for is as a steamer. Because it's flexible, you can put it into a pot or anything, a bowl, and basically put your vegetables, whatever, dumplings on top here, and use it as a steamer because it's so versatile, right? Now, the funny thing with these mesh mats is the first generation of nonstick mats were solid, and I didn't like those because it kind of steamed your food, but this allows all the aromas and flavors to come through. But the funny thing is sometimes we have people say, well, damn, the mat's no longer non-stick. I'm like, when's the last time you washed it? People are like, what? I have to wash it? I'm like, dude, that's like having a non-stick fry pan. You got to wash it still, right? Because what happens, especially if you're doing proteins on here like meat and fish, right? Bits of garlic or bits of protein get stuck in here, and you keep on. If you don't wash the thing, food will stick to the proteins, right? So it always makes me laugh. It's no longer non-stick. I'm like, come on, you got to clean it, right? So. Yeah, and with the rest of the product back, we've got, of course, this great cookbook, Grilling with House of Q. We've got some cedar planks here, always great. It's an easy way to add some flavor.
Very handy, very useful.
And we my daughter can almost eat this with a spoon and ice cream, this apple butter stuff of yours. So Brian's going to include a variety pack of different spices and sauces to go with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, lots of great things. Now, thermometer, Brian.
That's right.
Show your fancy one. So the ones I have here.
Well, I grabbed a few that I've got. And so Andre, and if you're watching, over the years, I don't know, this is a very small collection of what I've had. Many different types of thermometers and the styles and the technology and brands and things of that nature that I've used. But in almost every instance, and you can see it there, I melt them somehow I melt them or break them. But anyway, some that are like $10. And so really easy, like low cost, but the analogy I use, Andre, is if you don't have a thermometer, it's like driving a car without a speedometer. You have to guess what speed you're going, if you're at the right rate, if you're slower or if you're faster. And the only way to know that is with a speedometer. Of course, you can guess or just judge by what's around you, but they're not really good rules, right? And this is where your thermometers come in. And if you want to be a better cook on your grill or even in your kitchen, definitely have a thermometer.
Yeah. And now, the main kind people ask us for, so I'll break down very quick. There's the instant reads, right? That will give you temperature reading within, depending on the quality, anywhere from 5 seconds to, I've seen some take up a minute, right? So these ones you never leave in your food, okay, people? Don't leave it in your barbecue. There's you want to make sure it's oven proof. The ones that are oven proof, like this one, whether you're roasting on your barbecue or in your oven in home, this stays in your turkey or roast the whole duration, and easy read dial, so you can tell when it's done at the right temperature. Because as I said, people will spend, you can easily spend hundreds of dollars on a great roast, and people chintzy out and don't use the thermometer, and they overcook it, right? And they just ruin it. And then these little button thermometers, I love when I have a lot of guests over. Each one of these goes into each individual steak, so you can monitor if someone likes medium rare and someone likes well done. It keeps track of it for you. So nice and easy in that regards. So Brian, should we get cooking here?
We can certainly get cooking while you gather your ingredients, which might be right in front of you. I want to point out real quickly, because this comes up for me whenever I'm on a trade show stage or something like that. And so if you've got a thermometer, pretty much every type of thermometer, be it analog or if it's digital, will have a probe. Some will be on a wire, some will be folding in and out like this, or a stick thermometer just like this one. But I wanted to point out where it reads the temperature. And people think that it might be right in the middle of, and I'm going to describe this the shaft of the probe right here, just like a lead pencil, the wood pencil, where you've got the wood with all the yellow that's wrapped around there, while the paint is that you would chew on it, leave your teeth imprint in there, right? You remember doing that in high school or in school. But towards over here, towards the, you still do that? So towards the tip is when it starts to taper, where you'll see the wood as you've sharpened the pencil. It still doesn't read the temperature right there. Where it reads the temperature is wherever the fine tip is, where the lead is on your pencil. Wherever that is, that will read the temperature. Not in the middle of the shaft, not where it has the tapering of the probe. It's right at that tip, and that's where it makes the connection and sends the temperature, or sends the circuitry back to the thermometer to read that temperature. So wherever that is, that's what you're reading. Keep that in mind.
No, great tip. Actually, it's one of those things you think everyone knows, but you don't know what you don't know. So here's a good example. If this was a piece of meat, right, a piece of chicken, I've got my thermometer. I just taught my daughter this the other day. I said, how do you know where to stick it in? You want to make sure you're not hitting bone, because that's going to give you inaccurate readings, right? But find out where you think the center of it is. Use your probe here and use your fingers and judge the distance here, right? In terms of where's the middle spot. It's not, I'm not going to stick it all the way in here and get inaccurate reading. I want it so it's in the middle. So I gauge, I hold my finger at the edge here. So when you push it in, whatever you're putting into, it ends up at the center of it.
Yep, absolutely. Now, as you've gathered, you've got an onion there, which is perfect. So the two recipes that I wanted to point out for grilling tips, there's the first one we did actually for Farta Grills. It was on Global TV. Was a bacon-wrapped chicken leg. And so we'll get to some of the prep and breaking down a chicken here. But the onion that you just held there was a blooming skillet onion. And so the onion, is that a sweet onion?
You know what? I didn't ask.
Or it was an onion. Okay, no worries. So I love onions, and so I'm Ukrainian. So everything starts with onions and garlic. Almost every dish that I'm doing has onions and garlic in
Oh
it.
yeah.
So I love onions, and the blooming onion or the blossom is those ones that you see at the fair or the peony, or for example, where they're cut with a special. They're often battered and then deep fried, and they're layered. They all kind of bloom out like a blossom flower, and they have all the different layers, and you pick off different pieces and eat them that way. And so we're going to do that on the grill with this recipe. So starting off with that onion there. So what knife would you choose to finish up that onion there, Andre?
Yeah, for sure, with my chef's knife, just because of the nice wide blade, right? So I'm gonna adjust my camera angle here so everyone can get a good look on what we're doing down here at the cutting board here. So basically, just a quick illustration, we talk about that width of the blade, right? Versus like you talked about with the boning knife. Oops, I'll get them in the picture here, right? So if I want to work on a cutting board here, you can see I can't really work directly on the cutting board. Only this portion of the blade, basically about 2 inches, is making contact with the board. You see a lot of light coming through at the bottom here. Whereas the chef's knife with its nice wide blade, right? Look how much of the blade makes contact with the board here. So I can work quickly and efficiently whatever I'm chopping and mincing and dicing, working with that knife very, very easily, right? When you have a very narrow blade, you're limited. So with this onion here, all we're gonna do here, not dissimilar to when you're chopping onion, you don't never want to cut all the way through. So when I peeled this, you've always got the core end down here. You never want to cut all that off, otherwise the onion can kind of fall apart on you. So I've already peeled this onion. I want to make sure I squared this off here for safety, right? Whenever you're doing any type of cutting, you always want to, promote safety. You don't want things rolling around on you. Nothing good happens when that occurs. Mind you, it's entertaining, but not safe. So all we're going to do here, right? We're going to make a bunch of vertical cuts. So as I slice through this onion here, I want to make sure that I'm going to leave about 1/4 of an inch. I want to slice down, but not all the way through. This is kind of an oval shaped onion. It's kind of weird. Can't tell. So one vertical cut there. I'm going to do another cut here. Be careful not to go all the way down, otherwise I'll kind of ruin it. So there's 4 pieces. I want to get basically 8 pieces. So it's like cutting up a piece of pie. I'm going to go right down the middle of the next one. I'll slice down. Now, one thing I'm kind of mentally doing to make sure I get the same depth, I'm making a notation of how far the spine of the knife, which is the top piece here, right, makes contact, right? Once I basically level out here, then I'm stopping. So I make sure I get the same depth of cut, if you will. Just like that. I probably could gone down a little bit further, Brian? But it will basically open up.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Now that's perfect, and you're going to do this for say 3, 4, 5 onions. Depends on the size of the onion and the size of the skillet that you have. Do you have a skillet there, Andre?
Yeah. So definitely, as we discussed, right, this is where cast iron excels, right? So a quick tip when it comes to cookware, right? Cookware is, in my mind, not much different than talking knives. It's all about the quality of the ingredients. So the main quality materials you have cookware, you've got aluminum, stainless steel clad, which is very common and popular, and then you've basically got cast iron. So, and I guess you could add copper in there as well, but it's not as common. So when you go from copper, aluminum, stainless, cast iron, it's always a trade-off. There's no one material that's better than the other. They're all different. So cast iron's superior out of all the materials because of the heat retention. Once you get it hot, it stays hot, right? You go to a Mexican restaurant or a lot of Szechuan restaurants, they bring out that sizzling plate of vegetables. That's because they're using cast iron, right? Whereas copper and aluminum conducts very quickly and heats up fast, but it doesn't retain the heat. So it all depends on what you're cooking, right? So I know you're a big fan of cast iron. It's anyone who does any barbecuing, that's basically go-to cookware, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. I love using them, and I even have my grandmother's hand-me-down. I'm guessing it's about 100 years, 110-year-old cast iron skillet from Whitehorse, Yukon. It's got this solid crust on the outside, but anyway, the inside on where you're cooking is fantastic. It's a perfect pan, and so my point in all this is, if you spend $50, $80, $100 on a cast iron skillet and you maintain it, it's something that you could probably have in your family for quite some some time if you keep working with it. But
Yeah.
they're perfect, just like this with the onions. To prepare those onions, we're going to drizzle with some butter and some seasoning, say house rub or some Gusto d'Italia from us at House of Q, and put them right on the skillet. And that's what's on behind me, or right on the grill behind me right here. So I've got this blooming onion already done in the grill, and we'll get to that here shortly and show you what the blooming onion looks like as it goes on the grill. So you would do, say, I've got 4 onions in my skillet, and your skillet looks a little bit bigger, Andre. You might get 5, even 6 onions in there maybe, but it all depends on how many people you're feeding, right?
Yeah, it all depends on the size of your onions too, right? This one's pretty good. This is a 10-inch, right? Most fry pans are 8 to 10. Actually, we've got a beautiful one upstairs, a 12-inch.
Now I'm going to throw out if you've got that room and you've got a room on your grill, you've got the onions, they're pretty gosh darn expensive, folks, is do this and put them in there. If you're going to grill and give that roasting and maybe some smoked chips, or put it even in your smoker if you've got one. So get these smoked onions are fantastic. They're going to be good eating. But if you've got leftovers, Andre, you know what I do with those?
Stock?
No, I actually put them in a blender with some smoked garlic, a garlic head, and the onion, with some mayonnaise, and puree that. So you have this garlic onion aioli type thing, and it's fantastic on pretty much anything and everything. So go ahead with those extra onions. If you don't eat them, you can always make another dish with them.
Yeah, no, that's a great tip. Great tip, Brian. So we want to show everyone segmenting the chicken here.
Yeah, let's do the prep on that chicken. You've got a whole bird?
Okay. Right there.
There we go.
Whole bird for you. So, as we talk about, it's one of those things I was suggest to people. And here's the funny thing. We work with BC Chicken here. Cheryl Davies, phenomenal. She works with all the local farmers. And she even told me probably about 6 weeks ago during this pandemic, she goes, you know what? It's getting to the point in the pandemic where they're having problems finding labor to process the chickens. They say it may be in the future that's going to be hard to buy chickens already pre-cut up, right? Where it's just faster for them to get them whole. And whole, again, has so many advantages. It's more eco-friendly because usually when you buy chickens, especially I try to buy them in bag of 3, there's less waste versus buying in breasts or thighs or legs. They're coming in wrapped in tons of styrofoam trays, etc., and that's not good for the planet. But it's all about empowering, and we spatchcock the chickens all the time, which is another great thing we do. But to segment it is not very intimidating at all. So here's your chicken here. You just have to get over getting your hands a little bit dirty, and sanitation is paramount. You don't want to get salmonella for sure. So I will start with taking the legs off here. So get comfortable with the chicken. So one thing I always tell people from the back is you can bend up, the legs here, and you basically disjoint it, right? Just pull it up, and you can actually feel and hear it disjoint from there. And basically all you do when you've got your chicken open here is you're going to basically make an incision here. So I'm going to choose my Shin Japanese one here, and we're basically gonna make an incision there. And as you cut it open, right, you can kind of see it, right? Don't be intimidated by the process. Have a look and get familiar where everything is. So that joint that we disjointed here, actually I just popped it here. You can see it right there. That's the ball of the joint. And basically when we take our knife and cut along there, we basically just want to follow along. The carcass basically is a natural line that lets you follow, and then that joint, we're just going to cut away just like that.
Away it goes
in
on the quarter.
Right? That's our thigh, that's our leg there. So I'll do that. I'm just going to do half the chicken. It's pretty self-explanatory. And then for your breast, you basically got your keel bone running down the middle of the chicken here. And you basically would make 2 incisions on either side of that keel bone, right? 1, and then we're going to do another one here, 2. Right? And it just opens up. And then from here, same thing, right? We're going to basically pull away as we're cutting and expose.
Just a pause there for a second, Andre. And I see new cooks, new chefs, when they get into this, they've got these almost really big knife movements. And I learned this from watching butchers over the years, and as you can see Andre working on this, it's really tiny, fine cuts, and using one hand to pull away from the bone right there as he's boning out the chicken breast. And it's just a really tiny cut, pull away, a little tiny cut, and a pull away. And so you can adjust and go through the process of removing the bone from the remainder of the rib cage.
For sure. So I always find it easier, to start from the tail and work towards the head part. So I've gotten down here where it's jointed with the wing here. Some people, if you want to be fancy, you can actually leave it connected, right? I'd say most people, though, would take it out. So same thing, I've got the joint area here, right? I'm not taking my knife, and some people just try to saw through a bone, right? I'm just being very delicate with it, find the joint area, and it's simple, right? There's no struggle. There's no huge fighting with the chicken, right? So if all I want to do here is if I want to separate the wing.
So that's called a supreme, by the way.
Supreme. That's right.
Yep.
Some people go to extent you can clean off the basically expose the bone on there as well, right? Kind of make it look fancy.
Yep, Frenching that. Yep, perfect.
So with the wing, this is a great tip too. I'm sure you show people the same thing, right? If you want to grill this or deep fry it or bake it, right? I always tuck that. Some people will cut this off. I like to just tuck it in behind here, because if you don't tuck it behind, it easily gets charred regardless of how you cook it. So that's your wing there. Here we've got our nice, one half of our. We've got our tenderloin here, right? When people talk about chicken tenders, this is the nicest part right here.
Now, Andre, can you grab that leg quarter with the drum and the thigh? And this is another lesson that's there. And so you've got the underside, and if you turn it over, you've got the top side with all of the skin on the other side, like that. Perfect with cooking a leg quarter like that. But if you turn that over and you show again that backside, and if you don't quite know where the separate between the drumsticks, like if we're doing our dish tonight with the bacon wrapped drumsticks, the legs, and you want to take that thigh off, and you can probably get close to your camera here, Andre, there's going to be a white line of fat right between the the thigh and the drumstick. And Paul Kirk, when I went and had a class with Paul Kirk from Kansas City a bunch of years ago, he's the one who pointed this out to me. He said, if you need to break down a chicken thigh and pull out your thighs right there, you're going to look for that fat pocket, and that's like God saying, cut here. And he drew a line right there to cut right on through, and you're going to be right through the soft tissue, and that's where the cartilage is. So you can point that out, and it's right there, right there. Ta-da!
It should be, right? There was no fighting with it, right? I've seen people hit the bone and they're really struggling with it. But actually, I was going to mention that, Brian. So that was great that you heard that as well with the white line there. So that's as clean and as good as you can get it separated from there, right? So now we've got our thigh here, we've got our leg, our wing, and our breast. So it doesn't take any effort. And again, right, you've got the carcass. In Asian culture, we'll make a congee with it, or you make a great chicken stock, which turns into a great soup or a great sauce, right? Hey, Brian, so now that we've got the drumstick for your recipe, now I used to work at a place called Chicken on the Run in Victoria. We were specialized in fried chicken. And one thing we used to do with the drumsticks, and I don't know if you're familiar with this, about sticking your finger down inside there's a vein in there so you don't get the blood vessel, right?
That's right. Yep. And similarly with the thigh, there's all these different things that you can do and remove that. And that's a good one. That's a really good one. So, but that leg that you've got there, Andre, for the dish tonight, and if there was a picture, the picture that showed this on Facebook and on Instagram when we did this, it showed that drumstick standing. And so the next step that we want to do with these is trim that base so it's you can see it's going to fall over all the time. And so what we're going to do is take a really good knife, and again, it's going to be mainly through the softer tissue of the bone there, and just level it off and save all those pieces to make some stock, but you're going to be able to get that drumstick standing on that end. Now,
so this was just a bit of cartilage that we took off there, so no problems at all with the knife cutting through that, right? I didn't have to, I was trying to minimize waste, cut off as little as possible, and now it's standing up. Now, the other thing I noticed you did, Brian, you like, cleaning up the end here, right?
I do. So there's two components there. One is trimming up and squaring up the end of that bone that's there, the opposite end of the drumstick. I like squaring those up so that the bone, like all of the different drum or legs, are going to be exactly the same size. You can tell I'm a competitor, so you get really anal retentive and making sure that everything looks exactly the same in your tray. So that's why I would square that up, and I have to have a really good knife to do that. But then right where the meat starts to taper onto the bone, and it's going to be inch and a half down from the tip of the bone right there. I'm going to take a boning knife and circle all the way around and cut that skin and some of the tendons and pull off that tip part, which will be called Frenching a drumstick. And so Andre, you run your knife all the way around on the outside there, cutting through everything. Once you get the skin broken, you can actually run your finger all around and pull that apart, and then pull the tip of that drumstick right on off, right like there. And away you go. Aha, there it is. Perfect. And you can pull everything down so it's not like a lollipop of drumstick or the chicken stuff. Exactly. Just like that. And that's a perfect, and makes it a little bit more sexier than just this piece of a leg that's there from a chicken leg.
Put a little hat on it too, like that, Brian. Does that work?
No, don't ever do that.
Now, if you did want to square this off, I would suggest using a cleaver. Would you do the same?
Yeah, definitely a very thick knife. And I wanted to point out one that I like using, which is particularly for that, is called a scimitar. And it's got, so there's the wooden handle that's there, but the blade shape comes curved up. It's an extremely rigid blade, and the purpose of this is not only large slices or cuts on say beef primals, but also breaking bones of that nature. So going right on through that tip, and it's easy to rock onto a cutting board and cut right through the bone. So always leverage and make that so that's safe. So you're holding on to the cutting board with one tip and leveraging with the handle down onto the cutting board so it doesn't slip all over the place. So
that's a great point. I'll just show people quickly, Brian. So something like that, even a chef's knife, I'd be hesitant. I think it'd be okay. Yeah. But if you were going to cut with a knife and you require some strength, like Brian said, use kind of what I call guillotine effect, where I'm putting the tip of the knife down and then I'm pressing down rather than just smashing down on it, right? So like this, and then and always the heel portion of the blade is always stronger than the tip, right? So if you're going to do cutting through anything heavy, always at the heel. But in this case here, if I'm going to cut that off, I'm going to use my heavy meat cleaver here, right? And same thing with the cleaver, right? Always try to do the cutting, I find, in the first half of the blade for control, right? Anything you're trying to go through rather than holding out here. And even, to hold a knife properly, I still even pinch grip a cleaver, right? So it's more control and safer rather than just holding what we call a hammer or pistol grip.
Yeah,
right?
that's
awesome.
Hold
it up on the blade, it doesn't roll around on you. And this one here, I would just size it up here, right? And I would just, it doesn't have to be great big, it's not like So I Married an Axe Murderer movie, kind of thing, where you're holding up above your head and coming down on the chicken, right? It's just a small, short, just like that.
Yep, done.
Now, the only thing you have to be careful of when you cut it like that, right? Fragments, bones, make sure you're pulling up, because there's nothing worse than eating that and getting little fragments of bone between the teeth, right?
Listen, if you've got 8, 10, 12, 15 pieces of chicken or legs to do this, you can trim them up like this, make them look really good. If you're doing like 300 or 18,000 or whatever it is, like you're doing grills on Fox, you may not want to do all that labor. But the next part of this dish is taking a strip of bacon. Maybe you've got some around there, Andre. And what you're going to do is just wrap it around, starting at the top where the bone is exposed to here at the top, and just wrapping it all the way around that drumstick and kind of letting the bacon adhere to itself on the outside of that. Exactly. Something like that right there.
I don't have bacon, but I have onion peel. Surprisingly, I just told a friend this today. I actually don't like bacon. I know. Sorry. If I told you that before, you wouldn't have done the episode with me, Brian. But I'm sorry. It's I can't get around the amount of oil. Anyways, that's a different episode.
I'll leave it alone. I'll leave it alone, Andre. Oh my gosh. So yeah, so wrap all those up on there, and then give them a pretty liberal seasoning on the volume of seasoning on the outside. House of Q's house rub is a perfect one. If you want some additional flavor, or you want something a little bit more spicy, you're trying to do that buffalo wing or chicken wing, but you're using a chicken leg, go for some peppered bovine. That's a perfect one. But whatever, get lots of seasoning on the outside, and they're going to go on your grill. So you've got all your chicken prepped. We've got the onion prepped. Andre, how are we doing in your kitchen?
We're good. We're good. I think I was going to pass it over to you. We want to see the finished product there, and I want to make the fans drool.
So, a couple of quick grilling tips. I had a wireless headphone microphone just before we started, and just as we went live, everything crapped out, and so I needed to go on the wire. So I'm on a tether. So I don't know how well it'll be to show you this, but anyway, I wanted to explain that to you. I had a wireless one, but it wasn't working. Anyway, so I did. I think it's 10 chicken legs that are in there. They're all wrapped up. They're on the top rack of my grill on the top there. And on the grill, I've got 5 burners on this particular grill. But if you've got 3 or even 2 burners, you're only going to turn one of those 2 burners off. If you've got 3, the 2 outside ones. In this instance with 5, I've only got the 2 outside burners on. None of the middle ones are on. And this will allow me to cook not only the onions, but also the chicken indirectly. This is a great skill so you don't have any flare-ups, you don't have any burning, any excess crisping and things of that nature on when you're cooking dishes. And it's a grill mastery, a direct zone of heat and an indirect zone of heat. So keep that in mind when you're getting out to the grill.
Yeah. I think, Brian, as you stated, when we did we were fortunate enough, Brian and I went over to a lucky prize winner's house and we cooked a beautiful meal for them, right? You talked about how one of the biggest mistakes people make is they just crank it on high, right? It's just I can get it.
It just incinerate everything. Whatever it is, I want to incinerate it.
If it's black, it's done.
Yeah, okay, good, right? So before I open the lid, so I've got the chicken on the top rack, and I've got the onion in a skillet right below it. So as the cooking and the bacon are cooking, they're going to drip all over into the onions. And that's going to be horrible, right? Oh, no. Oh, that's like complete love fest of onion and sweetness and yumminess and everything else. And, oh, yeah. So that's what's going on here. And I don't know how far I'm going to reach, but let me see how far we can get here and see if I can show you a little bit of the picture. Hang on a second. There we go. Let me turn my camera a little bit. Oh, the other way, Brian. Other way. Okay, and down a little bit. There we go. So you got the chicken on the top rack right here. The skillet with the onions are on the bottom. I'm going to use my handy dandy glove and get the skillet here.
Brian, you can't bring the laptop closer to the barbecue? Or maybe you don't. Oh, okay, even better. You're bringing it to us.
There we go. All right. And so, I don't know how well that's coming out on the camera. Now, surprisingly to me, there's actually quite a bit of liquid in here in the skillet. So you can see how this would be easy to pick on out and have a bite. If you want to, you can glaze these with some barbecue sauce. It might be really good with some spicy stuff like sugar and spice or apple butter, or just with the chicken drippings all over it. Oh my gosh, this is good. I love onions. Anyway, so that's in the skillet underneath there.
Brian, you could throw in a few cloves of garlic in there as well, right? Nothing wrong with that.
You know what? Carrots, peppers, mushrooms, anything all on that skillet is just a side dish of just root vegetables or vegetables that you get in the farmer's market. Put it in a skillet right underneath. When you're cooking outside, it's awesome. And if you've got a nice looking skillet, you can bring that right to the table. Of course, have something underneath so you're not burning the table or melting something plastic that's often underneath there, and bring that right to the table. Now, I'm going to grab my tongs here and just see if I can show you some of the chicken here. Hang on a sec.
Too bad we didn't have technology like Star Trek, Brian. You could just teleport a piece of chicken over to me.
So here we go. I'm going to kind of go up to the camera. These are really sexy. I love how the bacon renders onto, or just comes together. You can see the end of the bacon strip right here. It just kind of renders right onto the drum right there. And I've glazed these with our brand new 5-star competition barbecue sauce on the outside. And again, I use my thermometer. And the temperature of the chicken on the inside, as I glazed it, was about 140, 150 degrees. Drizzled some glaze all over it. It dripped into the onion. But they're finished at 170 or so right now. They're good to eat and ready to go.
Yeah.
Does it look good?
Oh, it looks awesome. You know, it doesn't even, as I said, I'm not a huge bacon fan, but even that makes me want to eat. It almost looks like a candy apple to me, a small candy apple.
Come on, Andre, you got to tell us now. Are you interested? Are you willing?
Yeah, next time we hook up, Brian, if we ever get a chance to actually get within 6 feet of each other for sure. For you, I would do it, just knowing how good your food is.
Let me look at my notes real quickly. What am I missing? Am I missing anything else? So those gloves, we talked about the different tools, thermometer, the glove, locking tongs. And one of the things about tongs is that you can get tongs that are really short, 6 inches, 8 inches in length. Nah, you got to have 10 or 12 inches, because if you've got your grill at a medium heat or above, if you're doing steaks or something and they're a higher temperature, that's why I have no hair in my arms. Is because I've been using too short of a tong. So you got to have the longer tongs, and you don't need these 4-foot ones that are just these ridiculous things that you get at a thrift store. Bad idea. Get something that's like 10 or 12 inches in length, and that'll help out at the grill. So tongs. What else did we talk about? Thermometers. The glove. Planks we kind of passed over. Great to get some smoky flavor with what you cook with, right?
Sure, yeah. Especially with fish, I love it for. And the glove, I wasn't, truth be known, depending on what you're cooking, you don't always need a glove. But when you use the mesh mat, what I love about the versatility mesh mat, even if I do proteins, a spatchcock chicken or a whole fillet of salmon, right? I just love the presentation of keeping the fish whole. And the problem is a lot of people don't grill a fish whole. They cut it up because why? They don't have enough turners or big enough turners to flip it. But when you use the mesh mat, I've had a whole fillet of sockeye or coho on here. I use my gloves, I pick up the mat, and I just lift up the mat, and it flips it over onto the other side for me.
Now, it's kind of risky, Andre, but you know that plank. Do you have that plank that's there as well?
Yep, the cedar plank.
So if you're planking fish on your grill, you're going to obviously preheat that plank on the grill and still starts to sound like popcorn going off. That's when you put your fish on, so it's starting nicely warm. You're going to let that smoke off, and when it's finished, you don't want to remove the fish from the plank. You want to take the whole plank out. And so this is when you have a baking sheet or a cookie sheet or something like that. Don't use those resin cooking board or cutting boards. Yeah, right. You're going to melt it because you've got a hot plank. It's actually fire underneath that plank in most circumstances. So grab your tong and just pull that whole thing right onto the cookie sheet, and away you go back into wherever you're going with your food.
Yep. No, great tip. Hey, Brian, before you talked about not having hair on your arms as a result of all the heat, I thought you didn't have hair on your arms because you had some Asian blood in you.
I'll leave my hat on because anyway. So yeah, no, yeah. Oh, Andre, bacon and hair comments all on the same podcast oh my goodness gracious.
I think that's the reason why we got along so well. I thought you must have some,
listen, in 7 minutes at the top of the hour is the next episode of Fire Masters on the Food Network. If you haven't caught on Facebook or part of our newsletter, I am one of the cooks on Fire Masters on the Food Network. My episode is coming up later in June, so stay tuned to Facebook and stuff. We'll announce the dates and stuff like that. But the next episode is on in a few minutes here, so I know that people are anxious to go watch that show, mainly me. But anyway, and it's easy to tune out after a long duration. Now, Andre, you've got a contest to talk about, something that we're going to do here. So what's this all about, and how is this going to work?
So tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., we're gonna post details of the contest. I'll send it to you tonight, Brian, so you can share it as well. So basically, it's gonna be, the typical like both of us. Basically, I mean, after this video, how could you not, right? So like our pages, follow us, and we're gonna randomly give away this great prize pack. With the cookbook, the sauces, the rubs, some of the tools. Because again, it's about for me. I think like a lot of people, right? I get tired of eating my own cooking all the time, right? It's like, oh, we're eating that again. So you need inspiration of different, by having the right tools, having the right sauces and spices, right? That's what it's all about, right? And your family will appreciate it too. Because, if you think you're tired of your cooking, just ask your family. They'll tell you the real truth, right?
And it's okay to add some bacon to it.
Yes, it's okay. We won't discriminate against those who like it. My daughter, I always have her the evil eye.
So listen, if you guys have learned something tonight from what you've learned tonight through the show or what we've shared with you, share this with your friends. Share the video. It's going to be you can share that with us, and we're going to try and schedule some more. Hopefully, do some more of these things before
Oh, yeah.
Father's Day, or follow up with our contests and stuff like that. But let your friends know about this. There's stuff to learn, and if anything, if you have a goal, any day is to, before you lay your head down on that pillow, is making sure that you learned something today. And I think that's a personal goal for me. And if I haven't learned something today, well, what did you do today, if anything?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. See, now you know you can wrap chicken drumsticks with onion peel instead of bacon. That's the takeaway today. No, but you're absolutely right in these times during this pandemic, right? I mean, you know, you can, after the novelty of watching a bit of Tiger King wears off, you realize you got to come back to earth and and you know, do something with your life. But yeah, I'm a huge believer in that as well, right? You got to continue to grow personally, professionally, right? That's how you make yourself better. And you know, I just want to say on behalf, I'm sure you would have the same sentiment, Brian, in terms of thanks for supporting local, right? I think more so than ever before. Shop local, support local. And Brian's got a great website. You can get everything direct. And probably by Father's Day, we're going to have a large assortment of Brian's sauces and rubs on our site available for sale as well. So we've already talked about doing something. I know there's a lot of steak lovers there. I think the next one we can dedicate to nothing but beef and talk about you know, different ways to cook them. I know reverse sear is a huge favorite of mine in terms of cooking a steak now, but even getting into all the fancy steak knives and everything, that'd be a great episode. So maybe we tie that in, Brian, to whenever you're going to be on the Food Network for your episode.
I'm interested.
Yeah, it'd be like a double header, right?
Perfect. I like that idea. Let's see what we can do.
Hey, Brian, we had one question come through social media. Someone said, and I was thinking about it, so I'm curious to see how you'd answer it. Someone asked, what of the meat proteins cooks the quickest?
What of the meat proteins, animal proteins, cooks the quickest?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. It's a straightforward question, but kind of difficult to answer. For example, I've got some steak dishes or beef dishes that cook in like 2 minutes. That are very quick and easy to do that way. They're very thin, almost like a scallop of meat. Some chicken dishes cook very quickly as well. There's nothing more rewarding for me as a protein eater, animal protein eater, of a nice pork nugget that, again, only takes a couple of minutes. But then again, a pork butt can easily take 10, 12, 15 hours to cook properly to get to shredded pork. So it is a straightforward question, but a little bit harder to answer. But even seafood as a generalization, if you were going to push me on a generalization, seafood is probably one that cooks the quickest or easiest that way for a timing point of view. But once you start getting into cooking, patience is your friend. Therefore, you need to have time.
For sure. And I was thinking about it too, because it depends on the cut of the meat, where it comes from, how much marbling or not marbling does it have, right? There's so many different factors, right? So yeah, it's a tough one.
We could do a lot on that one. Listen, I think we should wrap it up on this one. I'm going to say thank you for everybody joining on in. Hopefully you've learned some things. Please leave us comments. The recipes for the 2 dishes that we did are on Facebook already for the House of Q Facebook site or Facebook page. They're already posted there, so you can look for those there. I'll try and get some more pictures of the onion as we get to, before I eat it all. But again, I want to say thank you very much. Thank you very much, Andre, for doing this. This has been kind of fun. I think we had a few technology learning curves as we got ready for this, but let's do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure, Brian. It's always great to get together, and you know, it's just a good camaraderie, right? I really enjoyed tonight, and I hope our viewers did too. And the best thing you can do is, you know, if you enjoyed it, you know, share it with others, right? That's all we ask.
Share the video. Share the video.
Yeah,
and we'll see you guys again.
Okay. Thanks, Brian. Take care. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.